Okay, so on your formula sheet, you have this figure. You will be given this formula, but you've got to know how to interpret it. Thanks to the figure, you can know what everything is. L is the physical length, like the inches, the centimeters, the meters, whatever this length of this portion of the circle is. All right? Where does this X come from in your circle? Where do you see it here?
The amount of degrees.
The amount of degrees. So it's the measure of the central arc, which is the same in degrees because the central arc is the same. The central angle is the same as its arc. All right? 2 pi r. What is 2 pi r? That's the circumference. So that's the distance around. What does r stand for?
Radius.
Radius. Okay, so now we know that instead of writing 2 pi r, what is another formula for circumference? If we know the diameter, we would just do pi times diameter. You could substitute that there as well. I'm not going to do that. I'm always going to do my r because this is the formula you're going to be given, and I want you to be proficient at using it, okay? All right, so for arc length, here's the thing that you need to remember. This arc length is an actual distance. You're going to need to include your units, so inches, feet, centimeters, whatever. So I want you to write yourself a note right here. Length must have the units. Okay? So the measure of an arc is in degrees, but the length of an arc is in the units, the centimeters, the feet, the meters, the yards, the miles. Now, I'm going to write the formula the same formula that we have on our formula sheet. That would be length equals x, which is the degrees of the degree measure of the arc. The circumference, I'm going to use 2 pi r. R is your radius. So what are you going to do if I give you a diameter and you need the radius?
Divide by 2.
You're just going to divide by 2 and plug it in. Okay? And then you're going to divide by 360 degrees. Why 360 degrees? That's the full circle. So really what you're doing is you're finding just a portion of the circle and timesing it by the circumference. Alright, so number 1 says, if EB, that is from E to B, is 15 centimeters. What is EB? What part of the circle?
Radius.
That's your radius. It goes from the center to the edge of the circle. Find the length of CD. Okay, your ultimate goal is to find this measurement right here, this length. In order to find that length, you have to know x, which is the arc degrees. You have to do 2 pi times r. Do you already know r?
Yes.
Yep, you know r is 15, so you can plug that in, divide by 360. So all we need to know now is what are the measure of the degrees here. So this arc goes with this central angle. I don't technically know that central angle right now. So I've got to look for, if I have vertical angles, that would be equal, or if I have anything that adds up to be 180, adds up to be 360. I personally like to look for straight lines. There's a straight line. If this is 68, and together they make 180, how are you going to find this arc measurement?
180 minus 360.
Alright, so 180 minus 68, and what's that give us? 112 degrees. Now, truthfully, y'all know, I wouldn't write this on my paper if I was working a problem. I'm going to just type that in my calculator. I just did it so you would see it. So, this right here, this is the degree of the actual arc I need. I need arc CD. What is the measure of arc CD? 112. And so then I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to plug it in. I'm going to find my length. So I've got 112 times 2 pi times 15 over 360. I get 28 pi over 3, but my directions right there said round to the nearest hundredth place. So I'm going to turn that into a decimal. Now, 32 is my hundredths. What is a 1 going to do to 32?
Make it 0.32.
Make it 0.32. 29.32, but I need you to have units. This will be centimeters. another way you could write this is you could say CD, so arc CD equals 29.32 centimeters. That would be useful if you were finding a whole bunch of arc lengths within the same circle. Alright, next one. Number 2 says if NR is 8 feet, so if this is 8 feet, is that your diameter or your radius?
Is your rate
That's my radius, okay? So when I get ready for length equals arc degrees times 2 pi r over 360, my r is 8, so I'll plug that in. Find the length of NMP. Okay, from N to M, all the way around to P.
25.
Alright. So I got NMP. Is NMP a semicircle? Nope, it's a little more. It's a major arc, okay? I've got to figure out all the way from N all the way around the circle to P. Now, here's a common misconception. Is the entire arc NMP 162? What's 162?
It's a word?
Just from M to Q,
Yep, that's
okay?
2 point.
Alright, so I need to know these pieces. What is one way that I could find PQ?
Use do 180 minus 160.
Very good. So I look at that 162 and I say, what could I make a straight angle with? And so I could do 180 minus 162, and what's 180 minus 162? 18 degrees. Alright. What's one way I could find NM?
Do the vertical angle of QP.
It is the vertical angle right there, so that is also 18 degrees. So I need to know, or you could do the same, the circle over here.
Yeah.
Now, I need to know all the way around. So that means I've got to take 18 plus 162 plus 18 more. So 18 plus 162 plus 18 for a total of how many degrees?
198.
All right. So arc NMP is 198 degrees. So now that you know the degrees and you know the radius, you're going to plug that in. So big fraction 198 times 2 pi times 8 over 360. I get 44 pi over 5. So now, my length equals 44 pi over 5, but that doesn't mean anything to me because I want to round to the hundredths place. What is a 6 going to do to that 4?
Make it a 5.
Alright, so the length is approximately 27.65 what? Feet. Because this is a length, you're going to be tempted to say degrees. It's not degrees because you use the circumference. You are finding a physical length. So that if you took something circular and you took a tape measure like you use for sewing, the little flexible one, and you went around that circle, that would be 27.65 feet.
6, 5.
Alright, so let's look at number 3. If VS is 12 meters, what part of the circle is VS?
Diameter.
So if this is the diameter,
Just divide.
how do I find my radius?
You divide it by 2.
I divide by 2, not 6. I did the math in my head and wrote it down. So 12 divided by 2 would be 6. So I'm finding the length. So I have my fraction. I'm going to times it by 2 pi r over 360, and you just found out your radius is 6. I need the arc. I need to know how many degrees is the measure of arc UT. Here's UT. Now, there's quite a few ways that you could find this measurement, but you need to kind of take a second and take in what you've got. This angle is 127 degrees. This side is 90. So what does that mean about these two?
They equal 90.
They also equal 90. So real quick, I'm going to freeze the camera, and I want you to figure out what is the measure of arc UT. Alright, so what did you find is the degree measure for arc UT? 37? That's what I'm hearing. Now, how did you do it? What did you do?
180 minus 127 is 53.
Alright, so my girl says 180, so this straight line minus 127 was how many? 53. And then what'd you do from there?
No,
So,
that's like vertical angle.
these two are vertical. Alright, and so then you could do 360 minus all those, gives you what's left. The other thing you could do is this would also be a right angle. So 90 minus 53 gave you your 37. Okay? The other thing that you might see is look at the 127. Look at the angle that makes 127. That would be a vertical angle. So I did 127 minus 90 to get what was left, which was 37. But there's lots of different ways that you could have done it, and you notice that there's at least 3 or 4 different ways you just mentioned, and we all got 37. So the actual arc measurement is 37. And once you get that, you type it straight into your calculator. 37 times 2 pi times r over 360. Now, Miss Slusher typed something, or I got a decimal. I knew I got something wrong when I got a weird number. I wrote a negative instead of times. Alright, so that looks better. Alright, turn it into a decimal because we want to round to the hundredths place. What's a 4 going to do to a 7?
Make it a 7.
It's going to leave it a 7. Now, what should I put behind 3.87? Is this degrees? Is it feet? Is it what?
It's meters.
It is meters. Because you're finding the arc length. You measure length in feet, meters, whatever kind of unit they gave you, not degrees. Alright, so let's flip over and look at number 4. Alright, number 4 says, if JH is 21, okay, JH, is that a diameter or a radius?
That is a... That's a diameter.
It's all the way across, so that's a diameter. So what's my radius going to be?
10.5.
10.5. Okay, so 21 divided by 2 is 10.5. So now I'm going to find the length. So let me go ahead and get that set up. My length formula is degrees times 2 pi r over 360, and we just found out our radius is 10.5. Alright, I need to know the degree measure for arc K to J all the way around to G. Alright, so let me color that around. Alright. What do you notice I need? Just about the whole circle, okay? So there's a couple of different ways you can find out how many degrees you definitely need, alright? Most of it is going to involve straight lines. If you have a diameter, go for that 180. So like right here, that's a diameter, that makes 180. What would you do to find what's left over? 180 minus the 85 gives you 95 right here. Now, can you tell me this angle that I'm pointing at? What is the measure of this one that I'm pointing at? It's also 95. How'd you know so fast?
Because it's a vertical.
It's a vertical angle. The other way, if you didn't notice it, you could say, well, that's 180. 180 minus 85 is 95. Okay? Now, you need to know from K all the way around to G. So one way to find that would be to add all these up. So if I've got 95 plus 85 plus 95 plus 59, that's a total of 334. 334 degrees. There was another way you could have done this. If you don't need KG, if you know what that is and you want to take it out, what operation do you use? If you want to take it out, you would subtract. So, if I looked at this, I recognized that those were vertical angles. So 85 minus 59, so 85 minus 59 left me with 26 degrees that I wasn't going to use. So if I need everything except that 26 degrees, I would do 360 minus 26 to get 334 that I am going to use. So there's a couple of different ways to do that. Your arc, KJG, is 334 degrees. The number you put here is the measurement of the arc I told you to find the length of. So then you type it in. So big fraction, 334 times 2 pi 10.5 over 360. I get a decimal. I'm going to round to the hundredths place, which is 0. What's an 8 going to do to a 0?
Gonna make it a 1.
It's going to make it a 1. And what do I use behind there?
Inches.
Inches. Now, I think I told you on the front, I did. I'm going to tell you again. Another way to write this that would be more specific would be to say KJG, so arc KJG equals 61.21 inches. That just tells you exactly what that 61.2, and thank you, friend, goes to. All right, let's look at numbers 5. Number 5 says, if FG is 27 yards, is FG a radius or a diameter? Talk to me. F to G goes to the middle, that's my radius. So I need the length of FED. So that is the arc length times 2 pi r over 360, and you know radius is 27. All right, arc length, F to E to D. Wow, I did a terrible job tracing that. All right, so this is the arc length I'm finding, this amount. I need to know how many degrees this is. When you look at that inside, do you have any diameters, any straight lines for 180?
No, ma'am.
Nope, so you can't use that. Do you have any vertical angles? Nope, there's no vertical angles. You can't use that. So at first you're panicking. All you know is the two angles that you don't need. Well, if you want everything else
We subtract
except 47 and 80, what do you subtract it from?
36.
So 360 minus 47 minus 80, because you don't want those, you're not using those. What does that leave you with?
153.
No.
253. Mom.
I had 233. Now, let's check. 360 minus 47 minus 80 is 233. Okay? You were just testing me. I appreciate you. So, sometimes you find what you need by getting rid of what you don't need. Okay? All right. So now, I'm going to take 233. All right? And I'm going to type that in. So big fraction, 233 times 2 pi 27 over 360 is 699 pi over 20. Let me turn it to a decimal. All right, round to the hundredths place. So my length is approximately, now, what is an 8 going to do to 79? It's going to make it go to 80. So I treat this like money. An 8 would make this go 79 cents, go to 80. And what is my unit here?
Yards.
Yards, not degrees, because you are finding a length. You measure length in units, in feet, in yards, in centimeters, in millimeters. All right, number 6, the last example on this page says, if WS is 4.5 millimeters,
Radius.
that's your radius, okay? You want to find the length of TS, this arc right here. Okay, so let me get set up. Length is arc degree measure times 2 pi r, which you just found out was 4.5 over 360. I need to know the measurement of this arc, okay? And that's what I want you to find. I'm gonna want you to pause. I'm going to pause my video, and I want you to figure out what is that arc measure real quick. All right, so let's try to figure out what that is. Now, my habit is to start looking for 180s, okay? So, if I cut it off here, I only know 31. That's not going to help me. I have to know one of these other ones. If I look here, I still only know 31. So I have a couple of different ways. I could find this angle. So I could do 180 minus 128, 180 minus 128, and that would be 152. And then I could say 180 minus 152 minus 31 to get my answer. Or, if I gave you 128, 128 is this angle right here. it has a vertical angle all the way from T to R. So what I did was I took 128 minus the 31 already used up to get me a total of 97 degrees. So I plug in my 97, I almost plugged in the wrong number. And so then I grab my calculator and I do 97 times, that's why I went wrong, 2 pi R over 360. I get 7.618. What's an 8 going to do to that one? It's going to make it a 2. Now, what do you put behind 7.62? Millimeters. It does make a difference if it's millimeters, inches, degrees, whatever it is. So, for arc length, you're going to use this formula every time. You don't have to have it memorized. X is the degree measurement of the arc you're trying to find. R is going to be the radius of the circle you're looking at.